Welcome to day 2 of your 5-day coding challenge. Today you'll use the HTML skills learned yesterday to apply design and visual enhancements to web documents. And you'll do this by using cascading style sheets, more commonly known as CSS. And just like yesterday, we'll introduce you to some fundamental concepts before you tackle the challenges. So be curious, get stuck in and enjoy. So we've looked at HTML and have seen how it forms the underlying structure of the web. Without HTML, the web wouldn't exist as we know it. And while it's necessary for web development, HTML is not sufficient on its own to create the eye-catching, user-friendly websites and applications that we encounter on a daily basis. Cascading style sheets, or CSS, is the preferred way of setting the look and feel of a website. The style sheets define, amongst other things, the color, size and position of text and other HTML elements, while the HTML elements themselves define the page content and how it is structured. A cascading style sheet is made up of rules. A CSS rule is made up of one or more selectors and a semicolon separated list of declarations inside brackets. Each declaration has a property and a value separated by a colon. And a rule is made up of one or more selectors. In the example shown, the selector is a paragraph element represented by the letter P. This means that the rule will apply to paragraphs. This declaration states that the text color inside a paragraph will be teal. Also note the spelling of color. The paragraph property being styled is the text color, and the value being applied to the property is teal. So why should you care about CSS? Well, CSS allows you to create the look and feel of one or many pages on your site. You can quickly and easily target one, some, or all specified elements on a single page, or even all pages on the site. With style sheets, you can target the elements you want, potentially from a single location. The change will then proliferate out through the page or pages. If you need to edit the style, you can again do so at a single location, and the targeted elements immediately reflect that change. Even more interestingly, you can also apply different styles depending on the device on which your content is being viewed. You might reduce the dimensions of elements for viewing on a smartphone, then increase them when viewed on, say, a laptop or a desktop. There are 4 ways to include CSS in HTML. The first is to use an inline style, where we apply it directly to individual elements with the style attribute. The second is to use the style element. This element should appear as a child of the head element on your page. This controls the style of multiple elements in the HTML document. The link element links to an external set of style rules defined in an external file. And the link element should also appear as a child of the head element on your page. Multiple web documents can be styled from a single page location. And the fourth is the import element. This element also links to an external set of style rules defined in an external file. But this element is not declared on a HTML page. It's declared within an external style sheet. This element allows combining or chaining of external style sheets. In our example shown, we create our style rules inside style tags declared within the head element. And as a result, these rules will apply to elements laid out in the body of that page. The font family property is specified only for the body element. Because the body element is the parent container for the paragraph and M elements in the document, these elements are displayed with the same font specified within the body rule. These elements are considered children of the body. HTML elements can have what are called attributes. These are additional pieces of information that describe an element. And all elements can be uniquely identified on a page by means of an ID attribute. So why would you want to do this? Well, you might have a button on your page that acts as a call to action. Maybe it's an invitation to make a purchase or register on the application. There also might be other buttons on the page. In order to make this call to action stand out from the others, you'll want to give it its own unique styling. And ID selectors working with an element's ID attribute let you do just this. The ID selector consists of a hash symbol followed by the ID name. In the example shown, we have two paragraphs on our page. One of the paragraphs uses its ID attribute and assigns a value of MyElement to the ID. We have a style rule in the head of the page. Look at the selector name. It doesn't refer to any HTML element by type. That is, it doesn't refer to a paragraph or a H1 or an image tag. It refers to an ID. And if there's some element in the body of that page that matches the ID, then that element will be targeted. How do we know it's an ID rule? Notice that the selector spelling matches the ID value of the first paragraph, but it also adds a hash symbol to the beginning of the ID name. When we display the page in a browser, we see that that style has been applied only to one paragraph with the ID of MyElement. The rule has set the text color to be a form of aqua. The font family is Arial, and the background color is a shade of brown. The other paragraphs retains the default style applied by the browser. This is usually a font like Times New Roman. And the background also defaults to white. We've just looked at targeting a single element on a page. Now let's look at styling some, but not all elements on a page. Elements that might share something in common. To do this, we take a similar approach to targeting an ID attribute, but this time we target a class attribute. Unlike the ID attribute, values in the class attribute don't have to be unique throughout the document. The class selector consists of a period, or full stop, followed by the class name. In the example shown, the approach is similar to what we saw when styling an ID selector. The difference is that we place a period rather than a hashtag in front of the selector name. We also use the class attribute instead of the ID attribute. Two things to note here though. The first is that different element types can be part of the same target class. Here we are applying the same style to a heading and a paragraph. Secondly, there's nothing stopping us from using the ID and the class attributes on the same element. An element may share styles in common with some others, but it might also require some added uniqueness.